do you provide credentials for facilitators? Yes, you receive a, oh my God, certificate. I had it this morning. I ran this masterclass too, and there was one word I couldn't find. Um, Next question. How long is each session? The sessions we have that are live are 2 hours. So session 1, 2, and 3 are 2 hours. Then session 4 and 5 are 2.5 hours because you facilitate. And I found that 2 hours isn't enough. So we need 2.5 hours for everyone to have their turn. And then the sixth session is again 2 hours. Every Monday from the 7th of September at the same time that this masterclass was held. I will be traveling for 3 weeks. So I wonder if you're offering the course at another time. Thank you for asking, Mary. Someone asked that earlier too. And I offer this program 4 times a year. I was planning on having September be the last one of this year, but these two cohorts are really close to already being full. So there might be one that's being offered in November, and I'm not sure yet. So maybe is the answer to that question, hopefully. Okay. Let me see if I may have given you the wrong document. Sorry about that. Oh yeah. PDF document. Sorry, I gave you the wrong one. My apologies. I've just put it in the comment section again, and I'm sorry for giving you the wrong one. Okay, I'm scrolling back up. What would be the main difference between the circle training and the transformational design training? Oh, that's a great question. So I have two trainings. One is facilitator training and one is program design training. The facilitator training is facilitation. So learning in real time how to facilitate and receiving all of the structure and blueprints to create your own circles and hold your spaces safely. It's about asking the right questions. It's about reading the field. It's about practice. It's really hands-on. The program design training is learning how to design your own transformational program. So it's entirely different. They don't overlap, but they are very complementary because I designed this training first, the Circle Facilitator training, and then people wanted to learn, for example, how to create a transformational program, for example, a retreat or a 6-week program. So say if you're a coach and you want to take people through transformational group processes, how do you ensure that you have your arc of transformation? And that's what transformational program design training is about teaching you the blueprint of transformation so that you can create a program that's specifically tailored to your community or audience that takes them through a transformational process. So I run retreats. My work is transformational in nature, all of it. So all of my programs will have that as the basis. But they're different trainings because one is learning how to facilitate and the other is designing a program. I hope that makes sense, but they're very complementary. Ginny, how to capture the content of each circle meeting. I'm not sure if I understand this question correctly, but I can tell you practically. So you have modules to watch. That's how the training works. and then we sit in circle and I record those circles, but they don't stay available forever. So the content of the modules remains available and you can watch it forever and it keeps getting updated. And so you have indefinite access to that. However, the circles that we do live, because they're confidential and we share that information, I keep that recording available up to 2 weeks after the training finishes, and then I delete those recordings. If that was not your question, that was one way to read that question for me. If what you are asking is, what if I am facilitating a circle and I want to capture the content? If you really want to do that, I would say the best way to do it is by writing. But I want to give you another option, and is to think about it as if a circle is something that's happening in real time. And the beauty of it is, in my experience, that we distill from the field exactly what we need in that moment, and that it's okay for everything else to temporarily fall away. So there doesn't need to be a scribe, or there doesn't have to be this, let's all agree that this is the thing that we need to get from this gathering, because it's different for every single person. That's why it's also so important to me that the facilitator doesn't name what they think the teaching of the space is, because opportunity to get exactly what they want. And so for me, I think the beauty of the circle is that it happens. And, every circle is so unique. You have people who meet, we will never meet again like this ever again. This is just once that this has happened, how sacred. And that everybody gets to walk away and capture exactly what they need without having it be written down or passed on, that the passing on is actually oral only. Danielle, does the site convert 1350 AUD to the 900? I am not entirely sure how much it is, but that's the ballpark. Yes. Yes, you will receive a copy of this recording tomorrow. I've just shared the document again. I'm sorry about that. I actually did the same thing this morning and then I thought I fixed it and I didn't. I'm sorry. What purpose do groups require these circles for? Is a question Jennifer answers. And there's a beautiful answer already here. And I think it's beautiful that someone has answered this question, because it's different for everybody. But for me, I love offering people spaces for transformation and connection that is deeper than what we normally know in our day-to-day lives. I can speak to my own experience and say, as a younger person, I always felt like there was something missing in my interpersonal relationships. And I didn't know what it was because I didn't know that in my own family system. But I always had this feeling of like, I want to have deeper connection with people, and I'm not sure why it's not happening. And so I was always looking for that. And the place that I found it was by sitting in circle for the first time and having the experience that I see a lot of people have that sit in circle for the first time, which is being so emotional just from holding a talking piece and knowing that people are listening to you. And I have that experience with people a lot that come to my circles for the first time, that they just sit there and observe it. And when it is their turn, they're so full of emotion that they can barely speak, just because it's the first time in their life that someone is actually listening to them, or a group of people is like giving them their fullest attention. It just that in itself is incredibly healing. So for me, it's to create spaces of, how can we connect on a deeper level? How can we create empathy? Because so needed in this time. How can we drop in together and listen in a different way? And so what Chiche, I hope I'm pronouncing that well, is sharing, is to bring together Catholics to discern in nonpartisan, respectful circles complex civic and political issues. And what Circle does so beautifully is specifically this. This is a scenario that is a beautiful example of how you can use this practice. Because what we do in Circle is we create a space where every voice matters, and we drop into a place of deeper listening that creates empathy. And once you know a person's story, it's really hard to dislike them. And when we're in a place and we decide, it's black and white. So we're like, well, we are the good people and those people are the bad people because blah, blah, blah. We have all our reasons. All of those reasons are here in a rational mind. And so it's really, if you put those people in a room together, they're just debating. Well, here is my list of things and there's your list of things and there's no meeting in the middle. And what Circle does is it creates a space where people speak from their own lived experience. So there is a possibility, an opening that happens where we create empathy between people who think that they are so different that they could never find common ground. But in our human hearts, in fact, we have so much in common. And it's the perfect technology and tool for that. And then also there's other people here, conflict resolution, healing and reconciliation, building community, collaborative decision making, accountability. I use it for people to share what their vision is. I use it to enhance creative processes. I use it for art workshops, restorative justice. The next question is, I currently facilitate for a psychedelic program. I have been in the facilitation field for several years and understand the role, weight, and responsibility of this position. There has been clashing with coaches who somehow do not understand or recognize the value of facilitation outside the role of logistics. I'd love to hear from your own words, what is facilitation in a universal application? I feel like I touched on this in the presentation a little bit, but I'll go back to the basics of saying facilitating comes from the word fácil, which means easy. It's to make something easier. It's to offer a bridge, an opportunity, a possibility that people cannot reach on their own. And it is to make possible. So facilitating for me is the art of creating the space in which greater possibility can emerge, where greater connection can emerge, where empathy can emerge, etc. And so it's not just logistics. It's way beyond that for me. Even though I always say the structure is easy, the role of the facilitator is really important. And that's why I can get so upset when people do deep transformational work without having training, because there is a responsibility that you carry for doing that well. Barbara would like to hear your thoughts when holding space for the elder of the family when there is conflict. I think holding space can be the same for everybody. I don't think it's necessarily different when it is when the person is the elder of the family, unless that person has special needs, which can absolutely be tended to. But I wonder if the practice is the same of just creating these agreements for conversation, where you set up a space where you invite all of the members of the family to simply share from their own experience. And that there is an opportunity for people to share without being interrupted. I know what the practice of restorative justice is, so I would advise you to look it up, but I don't want to take 2 minutes to teach this process because it takes more time than that. But there is a way to specifically do that so that people drop into a deeper place. Because I think the same way with conflict, when we feel very strongly about something, like I was sharing in the beginning, and you might have missed it, how last week I had some conflict with my mom, and it was small, we were bickering. but I was like, we were both up here and we were stressed trying to do things. And then when we sat in circle all weekend together, there was just this deeper connection to what really matters. And what you actually would love to facilitate in this place is for people to drop into a place together where we care about the other person's humanity and we're listening, we're deeply listening to each other without interrupting. And uh, there are ways to do that. The whole restorative justice process is based on that type of conflict, is actually, sorry, designed for that type of conflict resolution. Judy, I'm reading your question. You title this Holding Space in Conversation and Real Life Conversation. I think is something else, though I think the concepts are somewhat interchangeable. How would you say these concepts can be practiced around the dining room table at Thanksgiving? That's a great question. I have once created a structure on how to do Christmas or Thanksgiving or the end of year celebrations. And a way to integrate this in your normal life, like a simple way to do it around the dining table generally, would be in your family to have an object that you may have created together or bought somewhere on holiday. Like this is a talking piece that I carry around everywhere in the world that I've had for years and years and years. And it could be your talking piece of the family, something that's meaningful for you. And it's always on the table. And maybe you have a practice of every night or maybe 2 nights a week where you ask everyone to leave their phone somewhere, not bring it into the kitchen or wherever you're eating, and to check in with everybody and to just share these agreements. Say, we're going to share. One person shares at a time. We don't interrupt people. We let everyone complete their share and we just do a circle whilst we're eating. And the way that we do it is we all answer this one question that you all decide on. So it could be, your dining room table could be, what's something that happened today that was lovely, a rose? What's something that was a bit thorny? And maybe something that was funny. So just like a check-in, 3 questions, and then everybody gets to share. And then you can do a witnessing round. What did you hear? And see what conversation sparks from that first round of listening and witnessing. So for the dining room table at Thanksgiving, you could maybe do a simple to create connection. Let me just make this up on the spot. You could do a simple setting the agreements. One person speaks at a time. You don't have to share. It's confidential. Please share from your own lived experience. You could say it that way. And then what you could do is you could pass around a little turkey or something funny that represents Thanksgiving for you. And the person who holds that item is the person that's speaking. And you could do a quick check-in, like, what did you notice on the way here? What's something that caught your attention today? Just to slowly get people to drop in and to attune to the practice. And then once that is done, you can start asking story prompts. So one of them could be, tell the story of your favorite Thanksgiving and why was it special? Or tell the story of your favorite family gathering. Or tell the story of your favorite meal you ever had or your favorite celebration you ever had. Anything related to the themes that are present on that day, but you ask people to really share stories from their lived experience. And it's so beautiful what happens specifically in family settings because there's different generations that are present. And so you get to listen to stories of someone sharing about, Thanksgiving 60 years ago. And there's so much richness in eliciting story in that way in families. So that's a way that you can do Thanksgiving. And then again, you would do a witness round. What did you hear? What's something that you'll always remember from this conversation? And you'll notice what happens amongst the people is this deeper level of like empathy and love that starts forming in the field between you. Really fun. I could do this all day. I'm going to the next question. Should I start and miss 2 classes while traveling? Mary, if you cannot miss those classes, I would highly recommend not missing them. I always say missing one of them is fine, but there's real richness in coming to the live practices. And I think that that matters. So you can always drop me an email if you have questions about that. You do get the recording of the circle, so it's up to you. I'm not going to decide for you, but I do think that the part of what makes the training good is that you meet the others and connections that form between the people. And there's something about viscerally experiencing that that is really valuable, and I wouldn't want you to miss that experience. So I would highly recommend attending if you can make that work. Is there a circle scribe? Not in my practice. No. And you could, like, again, what I teach you is the foundations and the structure. So you can take those foundations and tailor them to your audience. So if you're someone that works with groups of people where you're going to mainly be doing visionary practices and a type of brainstorming that is different and more generative, then maybe you want to introduce a scribe in your circles. I'm not saying that you can't do certain things. I'm sharing with you what the blueprint is and how you create safety, impeccable containers, all of those things. And then I would love for you to take this practice and make it your own. I've had artists that have done this training and they run, art circles and creative writing circles. And it's basically a leadership tool that you use to work with your people in a different way that creates deeper connection and possibility for transformation. So you can add a circle scribe if you want. Thank you for all the kind words. Is there perhaps a way to memorialize the tapestry woven in the circle through art or word board? Yeah, you can be creative with that. You can absolutely do that. You can also bring art to the circle or have people make things whilst they're sharing. There is really no limits to your creativity. Once you know the structure, you can design it the way that you want to. So if that's something that you want to do, then absolutely do it. One other question is, I use reflective practice with my leadership coaching sessions. The role of a facilitator is powerful for conflict resolution and group coaching, but there is a distinct difference. Do you use the circle with the same group only once or several weeks? I use reflective. Do you use the circle with the same group only once or several weeks? I have different options. I think I'm understanding this question. I have different clients that I work with. I also run programs that are 6 weeks long. I have an online community where we have Circle. I very often meet people and just meet them once. So I work with corporates and run transformational processes with them that are typically a day long or 2 days long. People and I often meet them for the first time that morning that I arrive. So I will have met with the leadership team, but then I meet those people for the first time and then often never again, or sometimes, a few months later. So this training is really general facilitation practice. It works with new groups. It also works if you have been working with people already. It's very foundational in nature. And you also can use it and design a program that is many weeks long. So there are so many ways to ask good questions and to have what I personally think is beautiful if you work with a team for a longer period of time, they also drop deeper in. And the safety happens within minutes of opening the circle because they already know the container agreements and they can build on the tapestry that they have been forming. So In the training, you will learn how to work with new groups of people, and you will also learn how to build on working with people over longer periods of time. If you're truly interested in building a transformational program, then there is a transformational program design training as well. Can you share 3 to 4 examples of circles you've led? I'm curious about literal ways you've done this for companies, etc. Sure. So for a time between 2000 and, oh God, I don't remember the exact dates, but for 4 years, I worked at Snapchat, the tech company. Um, I left there 5 years ago, but in that company, I ran and was part of a global team of Circle facilitators, and we had Circle in the organization. And most teams in the company were in Circle at a cadence. So they would have it once every 2 weeks or once a month. And so I helped build the strategy for having that everywhere in that company. And it had a huge, amazing impact on the culture. And I can talk about that for a very long time, but I have a lot of experience of doing this in corporations. Different ways of doing it would be a simple connection circle. So say some teams had circle every Monday morning, first thing they did coming into the office, and would just do a circle of what's alive for you right now. Share a story of connection or share a story from your weekend. And that would be the way that they would start their week. And it was simple with the intent of creating that continuous storytelling and checking in to build culture with the teams. So that's one way to do it. Another way that we would do it is very often, most meetings. So I would sometimes run leadership meetings, so board meetings, etc. And we would run them in a circle format. So it means that in a board meeting, one person would come with something, and then the way that we would address that topic would be with using this blueprint or structure, which means we don't all speak over each other. We have one person share, and then everybody shares, here's how I feel about that. What about this? What about that? And then sometimes we would give them prompts. So, for example, a good prompt would be someone comes with, an issue, and then the question would be, let's just go around and see what's alive around this issue, and everyone would share. And then maybe the next round would be, let's all start a sentence with, I wonder if we could. I wonder if we could, I wonder if we could, and see what happens. So that would be a way of like gathering information. Sometimes what we would do in these scenarios too is one person, so this is a different type of circle, which would be, we call that a response circle. So a person would come and they would share, I have an issue. This would be leaders amongst each other. I have an issue. I'm struggling with dot, dot, dot. And then the other leaders would be there and we would say, does anyone in this group have a story of lived experience of a similar thing? Tell us the entire story. And the person would say, 5 years ago, I worked at this other company and this is what would happen, and therefore, blah, 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 blah. And what I learned from this is this. Anyone else? And so we would gather lived experience to get ideas of what has happened to other people in similar scenarios, and then do a witness round of, so what's the wisdom here that we can distill to see if that person would be helped by that information. So it's different than saying, here's what I think you should do. It is saying, I have experience in the same thing. This is what happened to me. This is what happened to them. This is what happened to them. And now you have different ways or different lenses through which to look at this issue. That's an example. I think that's 3. Another one is a vision, creating a vision for your team, for your organization, by getting everyone to share what they desire, what they long for. And it could have, it could be kind of like a brainstorming thing. So that's ways to do circling corporations. Other organizations that I've worked at are rites of passage programs. So I've worked at the Rites of Passage Institute, where we would get either leaders through training, and they would be people that want to learn the process of creating rites of passage programs. So a lot of teachers that work in schools. And that way we have circle over a period of 3 days. I also use it on all my retreats. The first thing we do when we arrive at the retreat is sit around the fire and have everyone share and set the container for the weekend. And then we meet at least once a day in circle again to integrate the things that we are experiencing. Because often when you go through transformational processes, I think you experience all these things and you're so blown open, but then you don't have time to let that integrate. And sitting in circle where you can speak to your experience and be witnessed and held in that way is incredibly important to integrate the transformation. So I use it in programs like that. This also I could speak to for a very long time because I have done this work extensively in many different places. But if you want to know more, drop me an email. Thank you, Chi. Thank you. Gemma, if I wanted to join the trainings with my partner, would it feel like it honors the space if we join the training and participate together with one investment? Or would we both need to register and pay separately? There would be a separate payment, but you can ask for a discount. So if you just drop an email to the team at wonder.global, that's WONDR.global, we can talk to you about that for sure. Thank you for all the kind words. Oh, you know what I love so much is when people are starting to find each other on these webinars. So please find each other, stay connected. This always works. This always happens, and it makes me very, very happy. One more question. I think there's a few more. In your experience, have you had these circles with youth in a school setting? If so, how was that experience? And have there been requests to create these on a regular basis? Yes, it is not my area of expertise, but the blueprint is exactly the same. And I'm going to share with you the name of a teacher that does this very well, has recently written a book about this, and his name is Joe Provisor. That is Joeprovisor. Joe Provisor. He is in California. He is one of my teachers from way back, and he teaches or does facilitator training for people in school settings and also does wider implementation of school programs. So he would be a really wonderful person to speak to. The blueprint is exactly the same, and I have worked with youth before. And typically, what you do or how you adapt the structure is it takes a little bit longer for them to drop in and to feel safe. And so things to bring in, depending on how old they are, is games or creative activities or ways so that they can express the way that they're feeling without necessarily using words at first. And then doing different ways of having people connect so they could have connection one-on-one, then smaller groups, then a larger group. So there's a creativity around the format of circle and taking your time for people to drop in. So you would typically start with more ice-breaking questions rather than what's on your heart today, for example. It would be more like, what's something that you're listening to or watching that you're really into, so that you start building those connections and that tap in a way that feels very innocent and that the connection over time deepens. In my experience, it just takes a little bit longer, but I have been in those spaces where it's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you. Oh, thank you. I don't know what your name is, SR, your Rose and Thorn. My kids love this every night. It's such a beautiful check-in for families. Trudy, with your example of using Circle to hear people's vision, say for an organization, would you follow that with a more structured planning meeting to consolidate an organization's vision? Yes, you can also integrate them. In Australia, I work with um, a collaborative partner, and he is a strategy specialist, used to work at McKinsey, I think it's called. And he is a strategy consultant. And we collaborate on these days for organizations where I start the day with Circle and create the connection and get people to drop into the heart, which means that they're then more imaginative and creative. And then they go into the more structured vision exercise or strategy exercise. And what happens, the feedback from these sessions or the way that we work together is amazing because people get the best of both worlds. And they have that feeling of finally, I feel really connected to people I'm working with. And very often it busts myths they have about people. Often in organizations, we have this, we see people because we don't connect with them deeply, but we're like, that person, T is such a, and we don't know them. But then when we sit in circle with them and hear their story, we feel deeply connected to them, and then it busts that myth that we have. Thank you, Dolly. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Chi Chi. Thank you for all the kind words. Um, do you use the Circle for Appreciation inquiry for corporate or educational training? I do not know what it means. So let's scroll on. Um, thank you, Barbara. That makes sense. Yes, you can share the PDF if you want to. Have you ever used the process with culture data? I don't think so. But if you want to drop me an email with that question and with more information, I'd love to look into that. Yes, it's a Google Doc, Mary. I think I've just shared it. I'm going to share it again. Um, thanks, Chi Chi. You just Googled it. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Wonderful. Those are all the questions. I am feeling very warm. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you very much. Thank you for taking the time for listening. Wow, and now I see the whole group of you. Thanks for being here. If you have any further questions, please drop me an email. I will know probably within 2 weeks if I'm offering the course again in November. The last time we ran this training, which was in, I think, May, it sold out after a few days, and then we decided to add another um, few cohorts now in September. So should that happen again, we can make that decision quickly. And I'm just really blown away by how many people are interested in this work. I really hope that it sparked something in you, that you feel enlivened by this conversation, that it's something that you can take into your communities, that you can be in service of this way, that you can contribute to, I always say, build the culture from the bottom up. And I hope to see you in one of the spaces soon. Thank you.